Alrighty, so apparently there is something in the school curriculums now called All Boys Aren't Blue. And it's basically just a way to explain to people that, hey, gender is a little more interesting than some people would have you believe. That seems to be the gist of it. Well, apparently, one of the people in charge of Moms for Liberty, with, as many of them that have been involved in scandals recently, one of them is super angry about this and decided to go talk with Blaze Media about the controversy of there being any conversation about gender whatsoever. So let's go ahead and talk about that. But first, let's talk about a piece of fan art. This one we have here is from Pernia, and it looks so goddamn good. Holy shit. It just says, she just says this space feels empty because we had the Discord restart, so we have a very empty fan art section right now. Holy crap. This looks so good. It is adorable. Sidebar, I need to figure out how to get all the fan art from the last Discord server into the new one. I don't know how I'm doing that yet. Anyways, as always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about this. We've got to. And yes, I'm trying to find the middle ground between showing fan art at the beginning of a video and not showing it. And I think the middle ground is instead of 3 pieces of fan art, we do just one. So it's quick and nice and done. Anywho. But
with Joy Reid, one of my favorite television hosts. She's just so wonderful. And you decided to, you had this conversation with her that I thought was really interesting. I thought you did a great job. And before we get your reaction to how this all came about, I want to show a clip from this interview. Again, this is not so kid-friendly here. You're discussing, I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? The fact that it's not kid-friendly, and yet it is in schools. Let me show you a clip of this interview where you describe some of the stuff that is in some of the books that you guys have been dealing with.
Okay, this will be interesting to see what they got.
This is the one for All Boys Aren't Blue, which is one of the books Moms for Liberty has.
Everyone should go and see the content in this book. That's such a good idea.
And so what happens is you can do keyword searches and find certain keywords.
Like rape.
You can find sure.
Or anal rape or dildo.
You can find all sorts of keywords. The question I'm asking is, what is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read?
So let me go ahead and say, when I was a kid, at the ripe old age of, I was in 6th grade, whatever the fuck my age was, 12 probably, I said, what the hell is this woman? How's it going, Mr. John Boy? This woman's a bit of a prude. A bit of a prude. But, so, when I was a kid, oh wow, Growlithe is loud. When I was a kid, I first read my first Garth Nix book. It was a book called Shade's Children. And Shade's Children was a book that I thought was not age appropriate for myself as I was reading it. It was a very, very graphic book compared to what I had been reading before. The first words in the book are, Goldeye found himself under a bird shit covered blanket. That's one of the first sentences in that book. And I thought it was so cool that they said words that I was not used to seeing. And I'm going to be honest, after looking back at that book, now that I've read other books, it's fine. All the material in it was fine. It wasn't anywhere near as hardcore as I thought it was when I was, 12 years old. Also, Siriso, thank you very much for the $5. I appreciate it a ton. It didn't have the actual adult content impact that I thought it did. But I grew up in PCA, so my idea of what was adult content was very, very different than what it is now. Now that I've had enough time to actually know, hey, some things are not actually that bad. They're just not actually that bad at all. But let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of this.
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, rape, pedophilia. Joy, you said...
All of that stuff's in the Bible. All that's in the Bible. Let's get back into things now that I'm back. Grand China? Grand who's what now? Anywho,
You let me answer, so
Sure.
I'm going to answer
Please
for
do.
you. In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school?
It depends. So if we're talking about sexual education, then there actually is a context. We are talking about things that people need to understand can harm them or can be used in ways that are understandable and respectable. So, like, that's the point of sex education. If this is a school book that is in the curriculum, then I have to ask a question. Is it as bad as The House on Mango Street? John Boy says, haha, yes, it's me. Okay, cool. You and I need to talk after this. We got to talk after this. But is it as bad as House on Mango Street? So in House on Mango Street, if you haven't read that, it was a book that I didn't like reading as a kid, but it was part of my curriculum. And one of the events that happens in there is a girl gets raped by another guy who does it because she's an immigrant. So rape happens in that book, and specifically, like, rape as a hate crime happens in that book. I still would say that that book was perfectly appropriate for me to read in ninth grade. If you actually read the book as opposed to doing a keyword search on the book, then you see that, oh, these things are talked about in a context where it's educational. The entire point of House on Mango Street was to have a book that talked about the experience of first and second generation immigrants in the United States who felt atomized and isolated from society at large. And yeah, like Sakura is saying, conversely, in the Bible, Lot's daughters rape him after the events of Sodom and Gomorrah. And that would be considered an age-appropriate book at all ages for every Christian parent in the United States. But don't worry. Having actually read books growing up instead of did keyword searches and bitched about them, I actually have an opinion.
I mean, that's my question to you.
So in what context? Well, what context is it presented in the book? In what context is it presented in the book? Did they go into full smut graphic description, or did they simply say, yeah, it happened?
A very open-ended question here, and I don't know how she thought she was going to be able to answer it. What's fascinating is she later then tweeted out the segment from her site, and she writes it this way: in what context is a XXXXXXXXXX acceptable for public school? She won't even tweet these words to her adult followers, yet somehow this is supposed to be appropriate for school children. I mean, Tiffany.
Do you know why people would not tweet them out to adult followers? Not because they felt like it was inappropriate, but because when we are on platforms that are monetized, we have to be very, very careful about what we are doing with those platforms, because otherwise we can lose them. So, like, let's say I'm on YouTube, right? And I type in the word porn. My video gets instantly demonetized. That's what happens. My video gets instantly demonetized 110% of the time. Why? Because I used the word porn. I have to find ways to either censor it or say it in a funnier way so that I can actually get monetization on those videos. That's how platforms work.
I don't think the point could have possibly been made in a more effective way.
Good, because we got one...
That isn't an effective point. It means nothing.
Clear shot at it, and it was, it was really weighing heavily on my mind. I knew this is such an important conversation to have with America and with Americans, because the truth is most people have no idea what's in these books. I remember showing my husband once one of the books, Genderqueer, and he said, Tiffany, you need to carry that around with you, so anytime anybody gives you a hard time about these books, you show them that. People don't know, and that's just the truth. And so I was really thankful Joy had me on the show and we were able to have a conversation, and I wanted to make sure that we really struck right at the heart of the matter.
Okay, so how did you strike at the heart of the matter? You just basically pointed out you keyword searched a couple things you knew were going to make people angry, which I could keyword search out of the fucking Bible. What does that actually change?
Yeah, I was actually surprised she went to a specific book. It seems like the defense of this stuff a lot of times is sort of this ethereal defense. Like, oh, well, books, how can you ban books? Now, of course, I know you're not banning books.
No, we don't generally go, how can you ban books? We ask why a particular book is being banned, because we're sane people with fully developed frontal lobes.
We can talk about that in a second, but were you surprised that she went to one of these books that you knew had all of this really offensive content in it?
No, not really, to be honest with you, because, Megyn Kelly tweeted out that Joy was an idiot. And then my friend James Lindsay, who some people may know, said, not an idiot. She is a Harvard-trained Marxist propagandist. And that is the truth. And so, sometimes they
She's a Marxist propagandist for doing what? Saying a book is fine? These people will call anything Marxist if it makes their audience happy. Jesus Christ.
Play their cards. I think that here she's very bold. They feel very emboldened about having this type of subject matter in the schools, and they really haven't gotten any pushback. I would imagine that's probably changed after some of the coverage. But sometimes you just have to press reset, right? We kind of had to press reset on the issue. So I'm never surprised by what the left is willing to do, to be honest with you.
So they're tying Harvard and education to Marxism. Yeah, anti-intellectual people will always tie education and Marxism together. It's almost like people who get educated tend to start leaning further left. It's a weird phenomenon, ain't it?
At this point, I just try to take advantage of every turn.
Well, both James Lindsay and Megyn Kelly are friends of ours, and I would say they're both right. I think she can be Harvard-trained and a Marxist and an idiot, so I will combine those two together.
Why, though? You need evidence for every one of those. And Harvard-trained, sure. Idiot, I don't really see that. And Marxist, she defended a book. What's Marxist about defending a book?
She also accused you in the interview of banning books. This is a very common idea that, and I can see why people are sensitive to it, right? Like, we know the history of book burning. It's not positive. Banning books, it seems like you just don't want people to have information. Are you banning books? Is this part of your agenda?
No, and as I said with Joy, write the book, print the book, publish the book, sell the book, put the book in the public library. No one's trying to ban any books.
Wait, hold on. So book bannings in the United States tend to happen at the school level. They have almost always tended to happen at the school level. That's how a book banning works. Books that are banned in America usually are not banned from sale in America. They are banned from particular areas. They are banned from particular places. They are banned from certain shelves. They are almost never wholesale banned from everything ever, period. What? Okay, sure, why not?
All we're saying is that there is some content that's more appropriate for adults than for children. And, as I said, I don't forever want to be known as the sex toy lady, so I won't keep repeating the word.
Yeah, you are the sex toy lady, though. That you will be known by that. I'll always be known as the cat girl VTuber man. Just deal with it.
But the truth of the matter is that, over 90% of Americans agree with us on this issue. This is common.
Gentle Squish says it definitely also happens to public libraries. A public library, not full-on wholesale in the United States. Not full-on wholesale in the United States, where somebody can get a copy.
Sense stuff, right? And so I just think we need more common sense in America, and that's what I tried to bring to that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point. You don't want to be the sex toy lady. I get that. That's an understandable concern. But it is actually...
No, it's not. Only if you're a prude.
Really important to bring up the specifics, I think. I think it hits people in a different way. I think if you kind of have this, like... general conversation about, well, there's controversial material, or there's even pornography in these books. People kind of come up and create their own vision as to what that could be. When you show the pictures, I mean, unfortunately, I've seen many of them, and I wish I hadn't. But when you show the pictures, when you talk about the specifics, they're so obviously wrong, not just to me, not just to you, but liberals, like people who are on the left, people who will go and proudly vote for Joe Biden in November, see this stuff and say, wait a minute, this is nuts.
So, yeah, here's what happens, though. So, typically, when you get leftists or liberals or stuff agreeing with you on stuff like this, it's not because there's actually a reason to agree. A lot of times it's because you've shown something out of context. And yeah, if you show a dildo raping somebody in a book out of context, then yeah, it's going to seem inappropriate 100% of the time. If you show it within the context of the book, oh, this was a moment where a character went through a traumatic event and that traumatic event was laid out this way, and the expectation is that, oh, well, the traumatic event happened, now they're going to have to grow and become a different person due to this event, That's more understandable. That's more reasonable. But they'll never show it in that context. Again, I'll use Shade's Children as my example. That book has people that get raped. That book has an entire section talking about the way in which a guy's balls shriveled up because he took steroids. And I'd still say that that's a perfectly reasonable book for somebody under the age of 18 to read, if you actually read the damn book. But sure.
And I think it brings it home in such a...
Naki Bree says, I'm asking this in good faith. Would you say any books should be banned? It depends on what you mean by banned. Banned from what? Banned in schools? Banned from sale? Banned from libraries? What kind of banning are we talking about and why? Because that matters a lot for the conversation.
An effective way. You almost have to keep doing it.
I agree. And that's the reason why the moms and dads have gotten up at school boards across the country and started reading the material out loud, right? Because when you talk in these fuzzy ideas of, well, don't you want every child to feel included and safe, right? Don't you want every child to feel seen in a book? And my point to Joy last night was, when she brought up All the Boys Aren't Blue, the gentleman in that book suffered from sexual trauma at the hands of an adult.
Yeah, and the girl in the, while being a child, in the house on Mango Street also suffered from sexual trauma from a late teenager / adult. She was raped in the book. It was still part of my curriculum, and it was perfectly reasonable.
And my point to her was, listen, if that is happening, if we have adults that are preying on children in that manner, we need to do a lot better than just throw a book on a library.
Wait. So if we have a book that can educate somebody on what it looks like when a predator is doing shit, do we just pretend? Do we just pretend that that's not a thing we can talk about? Do we pretend that having a book available to kids so they can go, oh, that thing happened to that character and that was bad. That must mean the thing that happened to me was bad. Are you telling me that that scenario never happens? Are we pretending that that's not a thing that happens? Jesus Christ. Said the Kite Runner has a fucked up assault scene. I've never read the Kite Runner. I've never seen it. I've never done anything with it. So I have no context at all. But I'm just confused. So the rapist later loses his eye. Oh, so the bad thing happens to the bad person. Like it's supposed to. Okay. Weird. Sure thing. Fucking hell.
Shelf and hope that a child stumbles upon it. We need to be giving them real support and interventions. And so,
yeah, do you know what? So real support and intervention is part of it. But sometimes it is that book. Sometimes it is a small part of allowing that child to exist in a happier, healthier place. It's a multifaceted thing.
It's a faulty argument. Everybody knows it. We were able to expose it, and we'll continue talking about the fact that this content in schools is not age appropriate. The other side of this is that we're not talking about the literacy crisis we have in this country. And I was in New York for a town.
Yeah, we do talk about the literacy crisis. That has nothing the fuck to do with the books you want to ban.
Town hall where we talked about the fact that only a quarter of fourth graders in New York City are reading on grade level in fourth grade. Only 11% of Black students are reading on grade level. That is atrocious, right? And so that's really what I hope to get.
Yeah. So what are we doing about that? Is it you freaking out about a book? Is that what we're doing about that, or are we actually doing things that matter and change that? Like which one are we doing? Because from my perspective, it would matter. Like I would agree with the words you're saying, and they would mean more to me if you were actually doing anything about the fucking shit. But you don't seem to be doing anything about it. You seem to just be freaking out about a book that talks about people who got assaulted, and just talks about it. But okay.
Joy to was this, okay, we're having this luxury conversation about books in libraries. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these kids can't even read the books.
Yeah, we can't get to the basics in schools, and then this is the stuff that we're fighting over. It's bizarre.
It can be multiple shit. You can have books not be banned, and at the same time, have a world where people need to learn to read better. You can have both. Both of these are fine. Both of these can exist in the same world. We can think about multiple problems at the same time. That's not an impossible thing. But according to these people, it is. It's an impossible thing. It's an impossible thing to overcome somehow.
And like, maybe you can make maybe there's some book out there that has an explicit conversation about, God forbid, sexual abuse or these terrible things that might be appropriate in deep therapy with some therapist in some way.
Or just having a book available to people is perfectly reasonable. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes just having a book available to people is the reasonable position. It alone can just be the reasonable position. That's perfectly fine. Jesus Christ.
If someone's gone through that trauma, but to make it widely available is crazy. And it's also like, there's no need for a young child to be learning about their sexuality. There's no need for them to be...
What? What? What?
Be exploring these themes in this way, particularly at school. It's so far away from the mission you were just talking about, which is education, right? Like, it's basic education. People, we have a generation of kids, especially those who went through COVID and have fallen so far behind, that need this more than ever. And it seems to be the lowest priority of everyone on the left.
100%.
It's not that it's the lowest priority, it's that you never see those battles actually being fought. A lot of times it's not that it's a low priority, you just don't know how to look for where that battle is happening at all.
And, you have to think about why that is. Unfortunately, in our public schools in America, our children are being turned into little social justice warriors. It's the best way that I can say it. They're not.
What's wrong with being a social justice warrior? What's wrong with being a person who wants social justice to happen? Like, that's another thing. We've pretended that word is poison, but I don't understand why that word is actually poison.
Being given practicable skills like reading, writing, and math. What's happening?
Robbie says, had to step away, but has anybody brought... So I'll listen to what Robbie says, because Robbie's actually a teacher. Robbie actually does a job and actually cares about kids, not lives their job as an activist against people. But Ravi says in the chat, I had to step away earlier, and I'd just gone back. Has anybody brought up the young girl, 7 or so, that was able to express that she was being abused simply because an age-appropriate sexual education book was available to her? Wow, weird that. It's almost as if these people are stupid and don't know how to think with their brains. They need something spelled out explicitly, otherwise they pretend it doesn't exist. It can't possibly be a thing. Jesus Christ. What is wrong with these people?
Is that these activists are awakening a critical consciousness in the child. Now, is every teacher doing this? Absolutely not. We love teachers. We have so many teachers that are members of Moms for Liberty. But the truth of the matter is the teachers' unions are pushing this stuff. The leadership is pushing this stuff into the schools. And so we need to be really honest about that. And then we need to look to partner with teachers who don't want any of this garbage in the schools, that want to get...
Yeah, how many? Give exact numbers. You've obviously done tons of research on this, so how do you know?
Back to the basics, and we need to help them to do the work that they need to do to reach students, because you're absolutely right. COVID, our kids were not doing well before COVID, and they're doing even worse now.
What can we do? I mean, I know, of course, making people aware of this, as you guys have done, is really, really important. Making the public schools safer for kids is really, really important. There's also things like, school choice and homeschooling that I think are a big part of the solution. Which direction should we go? What's the most effective thing for parents to do to help this problem, which seems so...
Homeschooling doesn't help the problem of literacy, and actually a lot of homeschool kids don't do as well as kids that are in public schools. But okay.
So large at this point, it's hard to unwind.
My best advice to parents is trust yourself. You're the best expert for your own child. So
no, the fuck you're not. Parents aren't experts. Parents are not experts. They have never been experts. They will never be experts merely by being parents. That's not how that works. Why the heck did Twitch censor your fellow? What the heck? What do you mean? Anyway, no. Being a parent doesn't make you an expert. It has never made you an expert. In fact, actually, honest parents will always tell you that being a parent was not only the thing they were least prepared for, but it is a nightmare that they stumbled through and learned as they went, but they never became an expert. Not on raising their kids, not on raising any kids, not on knowing how they need to be educated. The people who are experts in that are the people who have actually been working in those fields forever. And raising a kid doesn't make you an expert in their health. It doesn't make you an expert in their education. It doesn't make you an expert in damn near anything. It makes you better at knowing how to raise children, 100%. Yenza says, these people are blaming poor minority parents for their kids being getting a bad education and being illiterate. They'd have to. They'd have to. Jesus Christ. We are done. We are done with the media illiterate bitch. We are 100% done with her. There is nothing of value to be lost by moving away from that video. Holy shit. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That was much. That was certainly much. But hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please go actually read some books instead of doing keyword searches in books. Please actually read books. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie-chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.